What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Birds podcast, formerly known as the Bell and the Birdmen. We got the whole Bell and the Bird crew in the house today. I'm very excited to talk about the Eagles win over the Commanders to advance to 4-0, overtime win, and just to kick things up off top, Barchard, they're 4-0. They haven't lost. What would you like to complain about first?
Number one, this red zone offense is bullshit. And I love Jake Elliott, but stop fucking settling for field goals at home against the Washington Commanders. I'll get that out of the way to say, fuck yeah, Jalen Hurts, man. This is, I thought it was a great second half from him. The offense in the first half was complete dog shit, which I'm sure we'll get into later. And that's what basically everybody's been fighting about for the last 2 days. But to me, I think this is just, it's crucial where they go from here. I'm more concerned about, you know, the defensive injuries, what they're going to do. Everybody that loved blitzing is probably not going to be happy over the next couple of weeks because there's not a lot that you're going to be able to do. But I think too many people are starting to bitch about the quarterback again. And like, this is just kind of what they are. They feel like they can just turn it on at any time right now. And I don't think that's possible in the near future, but I'm happy that they're 4-0, and I think they're going to correct this shit. So maybe this is Barchard the Optimist this week.
Wow, we've done it. We finally did it, guys. It only took Jalen Hurts winning 21 of his last 22 starts for John to come on and be positive, and finally beating Washington, the one team that he has lost to in the regular season over the last 2 calendar years. But my takeaway from that game is ultimately the Eagles can win in any way. They basically have proven for the second straight season that no matter if they get down early, if they need to throw the ball down the field when the defense is completely committed to stopping the run, when if it needs to be a defensive battle like it was against Tampa, if it needs to be an offensive shootout like they've done so many times, that this team is incredibly resilient. Jalen Hurts does not lose in the regular season, apparently. And of all the games, I can't believe you could come out of that game feeling bad about Jalen Hurts. I felt like that was kind of his stamp on the season to start the year. The first few games were shaky, certainly. He had a lot of miscommunications, a lot of interceptions for him. I mean, 3, but I felt as though this was the best game that we've seen from the offense so far, despite the fact that they're a little bit reliant on the explosive big plays, which can get you into trouble at times in a season. But look, take what the defense gives you. And like I said, they can win in a multitude of ways. I don't know how you guys feel about, how they stack up against the other competition in terms of, the 49ers or the Cowboys and the teams that have looked like contenders so far to start this season. But 4-0 is 4-0, and everyone keeps saying they haven't hit their stride yet and they haven't lost a game. There are 2 undefeated teams left, and let's just take what we can get. It's been great to start the year.
They're killing it. And look, can we talk about this too for a second? Washington was fucking electric in that game. They were absolutely electric start to finish. I mean, Sam Howell played out of his mind. I didn't think he had that in him. I mean, he threw 4 picks the week before? This guy's a joke. I mean, but now, I watch that game and I go oh, there was a point. I remember it was a couple of years ago now, but there was talk that maybe some point he would be the number 1 pick in the draft. And when you see everything that he did in that game, I mean, constantly climbing the pocket, the ball placement, inside shoulder, outside shoulder, just making good reads in general. Like sometimes
sneaky athleticism.
So, they did get a sneaky athleticism in there. You do. Yes. Oh my God, you love his sneaky athleticism. So yeah, all the things that he was doing in that game. I mean, man, play calling was phenomenal. They really showed. You look at that franchise, you're like, holy shit! I haven't seen Washington look that good since they made the playoffs in 2005, 2006, or RG3 maybe. They have not been this good in a long time. And considering all the things that the Eagles did, look, they put up 31 against one of the better defenses in the league too. There's talent all over that team. So I thought that was a great win, and for the offense to figure out everything late, they always get it done. Jalen is clutch. This team is clutch in general, and it's rare to see. So it's just I just enjoy. I looked at that and I was like, this game was just fun. This is peak football right here.
Yeah, and that's obviously Josh Harris's influence on the organization. Is
all right. Well, since John Barchard won't be John Barchard, I'll be John Barchard.
Wow. Wow.
Yep, I'll do it.
I'm
doing
shocked. I can't believe it's you.
I know it's got to be me. The reason why Sam Howell was so comfortable back there, I mean, I think a 50-year-old would be able to make some of those passes because of how far off the DBs were playing.
Oh,
on
here
these
we
wide
go.
receivers.
Here's
I
the
mean,
fucking
it was
boomer take of the year.
Yes, you goddamn right. Yes, I'm sorry, but if our pass rush is supposed to be effective and it's supposed to get home, the pass rush can't get home if the quarterback's getting the ball out 2.5 seconds. Pass rush, bare minimum, needs 3 seconds. And if your DBs are playing 7 to 10 yards off the ball, what do you expect? Like, a lot of the people are complaining that the defensive line didn't get home. How can they get home if the DBs are playing that far off? I'm sorry. Like, that's the one complaint I have about that game. Why were the DBs playing so far off? Don't get me wrong. I understand Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, and Jahad Dotson are very explosive wide receivers. I'm not saying that they aren't. Very explosive wide receivers. They can easily take anybody over the top. But play with some physicality sometimes. Give your defensive line a chance to do what they do and play to this defensive strength, and that's on the defensive line.
So,
go ahead.
I just want to say, the broadcast kept bringing this up, and it was something that everyone noticed, the dink and dunk offense, which, we've seen a lot to start this year against the Eagles. We saw it in the Patriots game once they made some adjustments in that game. We've made Mac Jones look awesome at a certain point this season. We've made Sam Howell look awesome at a certain point this season, and I totally understand your frustration. But it kind of feels like the opposite of what, the Eagles were taking what they were given on the other side of the field. I feel like it's kind of the opposite in that they had to dink and dunk their way to a victory. And I feel as though that is a different kind of unsustainable in that I don't think that that's going to lead to, high efficient offenses when it comes to playoff time. And I feel like the fact that the Eagles were not able to make, get to the quarterback, the fact that they were not able to turn the ball over like they were earlier in the season certainly makes the defense look a lot worse. But ultimately, I'm fine with the team nickel and diming us all the way down the field as opposed to giving up those big plays. And like you said, their wide receivers are super explosive. They have some really good skill guys. And
no doubt.
Eric Bieniemy is, as we learned in the Super Bowl, Eric Bieniemy is a fantastic offensive mind. He can kind of figure out the weaknesses of your defense and pry at it over and over and over. And I'm not sitting here saying that the defense was good by any means, but I think that the majority of what we have seen so far this year that has frustrated us is largely by design.
Yeah, they love that. They love to sit back. That's always. It feels like that's been an Eagles thing for a while now. Like there's just been all these different coordinators that have come in over the years, and it's just like, what if we just give all the receivers 8 yards of space and see what happens? Like the Jim Schwartz infamous, what was it, like 4th and 23 that he gave up? That I remember John
Tennessee?
dying inside. Was that who it was? Yeah, like there was that. Yeah, it was that long
fence with Graham.
Corey
Tennessee.
Graham. Yeah, I remember Corey Graham well. So like, there's just stuff like that. They love to do that. It's that same kind of idea, right? Like you play all these teams in the league. They want the big play. You're doing everything to prevent that over top. And you're better off when your defense is that good. And, especially when you're playing average to bad teams, they're average or bad. You're expecting them to make mistakes, get into 3rd and longs, give you that situation where you're going to get the pass rush and you're going to close that thing out anyway. So it's all about like, okay, what are the odds that this team is going to be able to run an 18-play drive and do that 6 times? Like it's not really likely. So if that's how you're going to play, like I totally get that strategically as much as it drives people nuts.
Yeah, same. Like I just that's like on top of Slay's walking around there with a dead leg, halfway through this game, and you've got some inexperienced guys that are out there, as starters. Josh Job, got to button that up. It continues to be really good. So like I have. Tyre, I'm not trying to pile up because it's not a 3-on-1, but I just disagree. I think playing off there is exactly what you had to do. So, yeah.
But the play, my argument is to play off every play. Like I understand we're playing young players. We have older corners that might not necessarily have the speed that they used to have early in their careers. However, we have to switch some things up. This is a reason why we had to start sending a linebacker blitz was because the front 4 couldn't get home because the front 4 didn't have enough time to get home. So you have to kind of fix the back end somehow or some way, mix up the coverages, play some tighter coverage a little bit on. I'm not saying do it every down, but it seemed like every defensive play, the DBs were just 7 to 10 yards off. That's just not sustainable, especially against teams that, Vince, I hear you, but there's teams like we saw against Washington that's not going to make mistakes. We're relying on these teams and these quarterbacks to make mistakes. That just doesn't happen too often. It doesn't.
Well, it did early in the season, and that's why the defense looked better than they probably were. I mean, the fact that we got lucky with some turnovers, some fumbles lost, they benefited from that kind of variance game early in the season that they weren't able to benefit from in this game. Having said that, how many times throughout this game did it feel like Washington's back was against the wall and they were able to execute on a play? Incredibly frustrating. Time and time again, which is, like Vince said, that's what they're betting on not happening. And, maybe that you're right in that they need to switch up the coverages. They need to try something different. And as you said, they also sent some pressure from outside of the defensive line, which is not really something that we've become accustomed to kind of just throw something else at Washington that they weren't expecting. But ultimately, I was really just disappointed in how the front four was not able to get home. I know that they obviously drilled home to Howell that they needed to get rid of the ball quick after that Buffalo game because he got absolutely destroyed. I believe he was sacked 9 times. Like you guys said, he threw 4 interceptions. So that was clearly a point of emphasis, especially with how the Eagles have started the year. But ultimately, like I said, 4-0, the pass defense is definitely something to be concerned about. I think that everyone can agree that has been the weakest point of the team so far to start the season. But now we're sitting here, they haven't lost the game, and all I keep hearing is they haven't played anyone, strength of schedule, what are they going to do when they face that really rough stretch? Now, if you look at the schedule, I don't want to overlook the Rams and the Jets because they've actually been very competitive to start this year. But heading into that incredibly rough stretch, they could be 6-0 for the second straight year. They could be 6-0. And I ultimately look at it like, look around the league and let's look at some other teams like the Cowboys and the 49ers, who are, I think we could agree, the main 2 competitors with the Eagles in the NFC. And who have they played? It's not like I would argue you could make the argument that of all of the teams that these teams have faced, the 49ers have had an absolute cupcake schedule to start the year. The Steelers are terrible. The Giants are terrible. The Cardinals are scrappy, but they're still tanking, and they're not nearly as talented as some teams that the Eagles have faced. I mean, the Buccaneers are 3-1, and the Eagles made absolute light work of that team on the road on Monday Night Football. So I still think, like we said, there are some things to figure out, but we have time to figure them out before we get to that rough part of the schedule, before we get to the playoffs. And I just don't see another team that is so dominant, despite the fact that the 49ers have obviously looked the best in just taking care of the easy team so far.
Listen, this is what a dynasty looks like in the beginning of a season. And I know we're not used to that ramping up to like, oh, hey, this is really, how often do you see a Super Bowl team that got basically a dramatic handed your ass on the way out of the season, thinking that this was going to be a crown of Jason Kelsey's retirement tour, and it got blasted back in your face, and you're 4-0. Wow, phrasing. But regardless, but these guys are sitting here, and trust me, I'm looking at the analytics too. Justice Mosqueda is like one of the best of all time in looking at this stuff, and it's not good. They're an average team analytically, not offensively, but together with all this mushing, like it's a weird explosive click, just kind of like what we were saying in the beginning. But they're 4-0. There hasn't been any recent, to me, unless you guys can think of any. What's the last team that won a Super Bowl or lost a Super Bowl that was 4-0?
I would probably say the Chiefs,
time.
maybe. I mean, I can't remember the Chiefs coming off of that Tampa Bay Super Bowl when they lost, but I agree. To me, I've been talking with fans of the Chiefs and the Patriots. These feel like Chiefs and Patriots wins when you have one of the best quarterbacks of all time, when you have one of the best coaches of all time, and it feels like every single week you can overlook an opponent. You can kind of, get lost in your own head. Jalen has now won 5 straight games when they've been trailing by at least 10 points. Like, we're never out of a game as long as that guy's the quarterback. That's just how I feel every single week. Like, it's so funny because I always used to make fun of the boomers for being like, oh, that guy's just a winner. He's just a winner, and I'm like, oh, he's one of the most elite talents in the world. And yeah, sure. But Jalen Hurts is just a winner. And ultimately, he showed that he's going to be fine throughout this whole season on Sunday. And that's the thing that through a few weeks mattered the most to me. The fact that he's shown progress, he's getting more comfortable. And once again, I would like to be a little bit less reliant on those explosive plays, but take what the defense gives you. And like you said, like, this feels like a dynasty win to me for sure. Like the Patriots Chiefs, that kind of win where they shouldn't have won the game. I said it felt like a loss the entire game, and they won. That's how you know. Did you watch Chiefs Jets? The Chiefs played like absolute shit, felt like a loss the entire game, and they won. This is what really, really good teams do, despite the fact that you said like through a few weeks they've shown some holes, and analytically and just eye test wise, they're clearly not as good as they were last year.
Not only did they win, Trill, but they also probably amplified the Taylor Swift hate on top of that big barrage that came on Monday, which was so fucking hilarious. But Vince, do you agree with that? Like, people keep viewing this thing as, I don't know if you've ever heard that expression of like, it's either your mother-in-law or your wife. And this is kind of like what people are viewing this team. It's like, that's our mother-in-law. It's gross. It's ugly. It's annoying. Or it's your wife. That's really pretty. It's great. I want to stick with it. It's awesome. And that's what's happening at 4-0. Is there a major problem here? Because I think there is a major problem, but I also think it gets fixed. So, like, do you think that there is a major issue going on right now?
Well, first off, just shout out to my future mother-in-law. She's a wonderful woman. How dare you?
Smart man, Vince. Smart
let's get that out of the way. And baby, you're gorgeous. But now that that's said, I mean, look, I'm not worried about this team and all the stuff about like the quality of the competition that they've played. It doesn't matter right now. It's early in the season. It's about the entirety of the schedule. You know what I mean? Like, and for the Eagles, it's not like they're a team that's come out of nowhere and suddenly they're good. And it's like, holy shit, what the hell's happening here? And then 8 weeks into the season, they actually start to crumble and die because, law of averages. Like, it just happens. Right now, it's early. The schedule's been, not awful. The Buccaneers, to Trill's point, Commanders are solid. They've got talent. Rams are going to be competitive. And then, like, again, it's really this run. Dolphins, Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, 49ers, Dallas again, Seattle. That's it. That's it. Like, anything you want to know about any of these teams, they're playing all of the best teams in the league, hands down. Like, that is the elite of the elite. It's basically Champions League football, which doesn't exist, but should. And for having something like this, I mean, we're just going to know who they are. This is all ramping up to get to that moment. And it's going to be electric when it happens. I mean, even for the Jets, like, that is one of the best defenses in the league. They are really nasty. They fuck up a lot of people. They almost beat the Chiefs the other night.
Yeah.
I mean, they were dangerously close to doing so.
Yeah,
so
Zach Wilson heard this podcast and was like, I'm going to show out.
Right? Well, how weird was it that Zach Wilson and Sam Howell both went from like being god awful to like the greatest player you've ever seen? Well, definitely more Howell than Wilson, but Wilson was good. Yeah,
Wilson was really good in that first half, especially. I mean, I thought that he was absolutely incredible. I'm not concerned when they play the Jets if Zach Wilson is still the quarterback, especially when you consider how he deals with pressure. But no, like, I mean, look. We are playing in, I don't even know how to describe this. We're playing in the worst era for quarterbacks in a way, and we're playing in the best era for quarterbacks in a way, where any given week, a guy can look like a superstar. A guy can look like, someone who is worthy of an all-pro selection. But the overall quarterback play in the NFL to start this season has been not great. I think that we got accustomed to having truly elite guys at the top, and even the elite guys show their flaws from time to time. I mean, we saw Josh Allen in week 1. We've seen Jalen Hurts even at points this year. Even if you don't consider him an elite guy, he's at least a great guy, a tier 2 quarterback at worst. And I feel as though the fact that the way that the Eagles have built this team is the perfect, even though they have all these flaws, we've talked about it, it is the perfect kind of, they're built to play in January to me. Like they are just built to contend, in my opinion. Every single year when we see teams make runs, they always have that incredibly effective front four. They always have the incredibly effective offensive line. And even though the offensive line wasn't great in this game, Mailata kind of had, I would say, one of his worst games. Obviously, we had some injuries across the line during the game as well. But I feel as though they're built for that run that you talked about. They're built to go deep into the playoffs, and I can only hope that they end up with the 1 seed, because I think the 49ers are going to end up with that, based on how they've played so far this year. But that's going to be one of the largest competitive advantages for any team in the NFL this year, is just getting that 1 seed, getting the bye. It's just, I mean, we saw it last year. It's such a crazy advantage to have that going into January.
Well, I thought it was going to be a foregone conclusion, by the way, that the 49ers were going to be the team that gets the 1 seed, because, the NFC West was going to be awful. But that's not an awful division.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that now. I mean, that is competitive. So it could be that any given week, one of those teams, I mean, especially the Rams and Seattle, being able to take a game or two from the 49ers is something that could really open this up. And, like, you look at the NFC East, I mean, it is hard, but the Giants have become a sad sack. So, so you're playing the Giants twice at the end of the season. So talking about division record and just piling up wins, they're going to be done. I mean, they got nothing left. The only thing that ideally happens is you walk out, Tanner McKee in the final week of the season, and the Eagles lose to the Giants then, but nobody gives a shit. So, like, that's kind of where they're at. But yeah, they are built for this. They're continually built for this. And that's why they're just one of the best franchises. Like, going back, because, I know we got some new people listening now, and they need to hear this, Trill. But you talk about dynasty, you talk about winners, you talk about consistently elite quarterback play. Jalen Hurts is Tom Brady. And when you're talking about, like, franchise, dynasty, big games, all that kind of stuff, he's that kind of guy. I'm not worried about it. I don't worry about it. I have complete faith in Jalen Hurts.
I'm not there yet. Call him Tom Brady.
Wow.
I can't do that.
Come aboard. Come aboard the train.
I can't.
Train's been rolling for about a year now, by the way. This is a long-running train.
I'm not ready to call him Tom Brady.
Tom Brady took a lesser contract. He's Tom Brady. He does all the same shit. He is the same guy, except hopefully he doesn't, like, marry a supermodel and then divorce her. But other than that, yeah.
Jalen, do not get invested in crypto. I know it might sound tempting, but bad time to invest too.
And it's just market not that strong when Ben Simmons was toting it. So, I hope he ends up as Tom Brady. I just always feel weird because everybody wants their quarterback to be the next Tom Brady, and I just think that's really hard to be. But I also, let me just say this, to just go back to the competition part. The Detroit Lions do not come up in this conversation. Is there any reason why? Like, they're playing pretty amazing football right now, and it's early.
I don't buy it. I'm sorry. I'm not a believer in the Lions. Not a believer.
Why don't we buy the Lions? Apparently, Jared Goff is playing the best QB in the league right now.
Well, Jared Goff has been really good to start the year. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been really good to start the year too. I don't know if you've seen that, even though they're only 1-3 to start the season. But look, I understand. I get the hype. I think I might have said this last episode. I can't remember. If they had a real first round, I would be very scared of them. If they were able to just stay where they were and get Christian Gonzalez or Jalen Carter or someone that was a true elite talent. Brian Branch has been really good. He was the second-round pick for them. I thought he was a first-round talent. I understand that. They drafted a running back that they barely play. They drafted an off-ball linebacker, and ultimately...
Hey. From? Sorry.
Okay. Sorry. Apologies. And I I understand that. I think that they're going to be a competitive team. Certainly, can they win in any random playoff game? Sure, they've looked really good to start the year. Like I mean, I thought that they handled the Packers the other night. That was really impressive to go to Lambeau and do that, despite the fact that the Packers might not be as good as they looked early in the season. But ultimately, I'm just not fully bought in on Dan Campbell and Jared Goff winning when it matters. And it's not to say that they aren't doing well to start the year. They finished the year great last year, but I watched Dan Campbell and get it similar to Ron Rivera, the riverboat Ron thing. I just don't trust conservative coaches unless you already have that resume to back it up. Like, they are never aggressive on fourth down. They don't take risks, really. They play it really safe. David Montgomery, had 3 touchdowns the other night or whatever. Like, they are just an old school throwback football team, and that's cool. That's awesome. I don't think it's built to win in the modern NFL. I just don't. And I do just want to say, I said it on Twitter on Sunday, the Riverboat Ron Rivera thing. It's time to retire that nickname. They had a chance to win the game on the road as an underdog to have the same record as the Philadelphia Eagles. They were able to do whatever they wanted on any given play on offense, and they chose to kick the field goal, send it to overtime where their chances plummeted to win, and they obviously lost that game. So let's just get that out of the way. But these old school coaches, these quarterbacks that are good, not great, I don't believe in it. And honestly, The reason why I believe in the 49ers is because they're obviously just so much more talented on the offensive end, and Brock Purdy's job is just don't fuck up. And that's the difference to me, is that they have such elite coaching and skill talent around him that's why I trust the 49ers, despite the fact that Purdy might have not the most talented guy.
I'm really getting sick of the praise of Brock Purdy, by the way, too. I can't wait for that to end in December. That's just unbelievable. Go ahead, Vince. Sorry.
Well, yeah. I mean, the guy's playing well. You got to give him credit until he fucks it up. But Mr. Irrelevant, baby, you got to say that at least 3 times per broadcast. It's a rule. But outside of that, I mean, you look at this team, and it's all about talent, right? The depth of talent all across the board. Guys getting injured, guys being able to make a play here and there. Hassan Reddick got a sack and a half, 2 sacks in that game. He's been a non-factor all season long. To go through 3 games where he doesn't do anything, he finally gets the cast off, and then he makes something happen right away. It's just like, God damn. I mean, this team just somehow got deeper than they already were. Brandon Graham. How many times have we talked about Brandon Graham this season? Do you notice Brandon Graham? Do you even think about him? Nolan Smith is a first-round pick. He basically doesn't exist. I mean, this team is just stocked all over the place, and you need all those guys to be able to make a play. I mean, shit. Olamide Zaccheaus. Dude, that blocking from Zaccheaus, 60 yards down the field, him and Devontae Smith just trucking guys to get A.J. Brown into the end zone. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, he's such an upgrade over Zach Pascal and what he brought to this team. I mean, they're just winning everywhere. And, like, that's the problem for a team like the Lions, right? Like, you go all in on Jameson Williams. He hasn't done anything right now. I don't know what the future is for that guy, but he's had a really rough start to his career. And we'll have to see. Right now, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Sam Laporta is not enough of a passing offense to go and win you a Super Bowl. It's just not there. So as much as they're fun, they play good football, they win games, and they take like some risk, because like they had that fake punt they ran. I think maybe it was the first week of the season they ran a fake punt at their own 30, which was.
But then they punted it on 4th and 1 on their own 30.
Oh, well, that makes sense. That's the thing. That's the thing with the conservative coaches, to me, that's so amazing, is that they choose to go for it in the most awkward and non-obvious situations, and then the obvious situations they're conservative. There's just no rhyme or reason to anything that's being done.
Yeah, and can let's get a little bit more to that 2-point conversion point that you made earlier, Trill, because like they absolutely should have gone to win the game, because like just think about this in a broad philosophical standpoint, right? You're in a situation where all you need is 2 yards to win the game, and you've decided you would rather vote for a coin toss and then potentially multiple series of football. Like, you have to stop a drive. Maybe you give up a field goal. You've got to then surpass that field goal. Like, you're allowing 35 different factors to go into this game when it can just be one play, 2 yards, you win or you lose. And I think as much as some people will question it, I think people who actually understand the sport will totally respect the decision. It's just, did you make a good call or not?
And Eagles fans will remember I always know that an Eagles game is good if I'm getting texts from my dad about former Eagles games. It's usually I was with my dad on Sunday. We watched the game together, and he brought up Joe Webb at one point when Sam Howell was crushing them. I was like, all right, great, this is a good sign. And then at the end of the game, on the last drive, I said, does this feel like the Mushin Muhammad game? For
wow, what a callback.
Many Eagles fans will remember Mushin Muhammad. I believe it was like 2004, 2005, maybe. From Brian Greasy, I believe was the quarterback for the Bears at the time, threw a touchdown as time expired for the Eagles to lose. And when Sam Howell made that throw with 1 second left to set them up for the 2-point conversion, I said before that, it felt like the Mushin Muhammad game. That's an opportunity where you need to step on someone's neck. Like I said, on the road, underdogs, all these things. And you just go the conservative route, and it comes back to bite you, especially when you're playing against a team that you can't stop on the other end. They've been walking up and down the field against you. And then they also have Jake Elliott, who, by the way, is the best kicker in the NFL, by far the greatest Eagles kicker of all time, one of the greatest kickers we've ever seen, another game winner in that game. And I just feel like I can't trust these old school coaches who I even think Kyle Shanahan's too conservative, to be completely honest. When we get into the big games, he's shown time and time again. The Packers coach a few years ago against Tampa Bay in the NFC Championship game, giving Tom Brady the ball back with an opportunity to ice the game instead of going for it. Like the reason why I trust the younger coaches, the more aggressive coaches more, is because I just think when we saw it in the Super Bowl last year, we saw it in our Super Bowl run. You take risks, you win Super Bowls. Like that's just kind of the reality of the modern game. But the last thing here before we get into our funeral for the Giants, because I am the slop guy, I'm the slop god, some say. There was a rumor about the Eagles, and this is something that does not feel like a Howie Roseman move. I just want to point this out. But Chase Claypool has been sent home by the Chicago Bears, essentially. What a disaster of a trade that is for them. They give up the 33rd pick in last year's draft to get a guy who less than calendar year later, is already being sent home by the team, and they are seeking, I believe, a 6th or 7th round pick in return for him now. The Eagles were listed as one of the teams by a reporter yesterday that would be interested. Is there any interest as a depth piece in Chase Claypool as a flyer? Like I said, I don't feel like it feels like a Howie move, but look, he's surprised me before.
The Steelers do not make mistakes on wide receivers, and when they do, you need to fucking run, and especially when it doesn't work out for the Bears in 4 games after Justin Fields throws 4 touchdowns and still loses. I mean, the environment, I would suspect that Claypool would shut his mouth or whatever he's doing. I don't know what he's doing. He sounds like Juju, except like way crazier. So I don't know. I am a big no when it comes to that. No flyers for me. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Throw him in the river. Greg Ward, promote that guy. That's all I need. Greg Ward is a legend, and that's all it needs to be.
If it ain't a linebacker, I don't give a shit. No, absolutely not.
Wow, you really are a boomer. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't really have any interest. Zacchaeus has shown that he's been totally playable to start this year. Like you said, we have Greg Ward, Quez Watkins. Is he still alive? I don't know. But look, I think that they have enough depth. I'm really not worried unless there's some sort of injury. I'm not interested in acquiring wide receiver talent. I just think they're too deep. So I don't really think. I think Tyre's kind of right. If there is anywhere that they do want to acquire, it's probably linebacker or safety before this deadline. And look,
not Nakobe Dean. I thought he'd be back in 6 weeks, and then some guy off the street is wearing the green dot, and that's cool.
Stomping on a guy who's injured. Come on.
Damn it, John.
Come on, John.
I'm just saying. I still want Ritter, despite his 2 interceptions, looking awful against the Jacks. So
unbelievable. You and Solak will just never give up on this guy. He's terrible.
Shit, I forgot Ben's a Ritter guy too.
Ben loves Ritter. Yeah, no, he's no. I'm firmly off of the Desmond Ritter train personally. But okay. Funeral for the Giants. R.I.P. Bozos. Not a good way to start the year for the Giants. Honestly, I felt like coming out of week 1, that could have easily been the point of saying, yeah, your season might be over. But since then, they've sustained injuries to many parts of their team, in addition to Daniel Jones completely regressing in year 2 under Brian Daboll. And last night they got absolutely stomped by the Seattle Seahawks. I've never seen a team that felt like they were about to get back into a game. This has probably happened to them 3 times this year where it feels like, oh, and then Daniel Jones throws a pick 6 and that seals things. So Giants are done. Are they in the Caleb Williams race now to you guys? Do you think that you're at the point of the season, they're 1-3. They have losses against good teams, to be fair. They've lost to 3 49ers, Cowboys, Seahawks. Incredibly hard schedule to start the year. Their 1 loss is against the tanking Arizona Cardinals. They had to come back to win that game. I had an incredible statistic that I saw on Twitter regarding the Giants offense. Outside of the second half of the Cardinals games, the Giants offense has been a non-factor through 4 games and have been outscored 77-9 in the first half in their first 4 games.
Oh, wow.
So RIP to the Giants. I guess I don't think that they really have it in them to tank, but it might not be their choice.
Yeah,
they don't have a choice. They can't draft Caleb Williams. I mean, they just signed Daniel Jones to like 4 years, $160 million. I mean, you've got
I think only 2 years are guaranteed. To be fair,
is it 2 years? Okay, yeah. If they cut Daniel Jones next year is a $69 million dead cap hit. Next year, $22 million cap hit. So if they really want to do it, I guess they could put Daniel Jones on the bench. It's really ugly, though. I mean, that's like an organizational overhaul if you're going to go with Caleb Williams. So I can't imagine they do that. But look, they should have never signed him in the first place. This is a nightmare for them. Saquon's been injured. All the confidence they had from grossly overachieving with an outright bad team last year has completely come to bite them. And I mean, they need answers everywhere.
Man, what is Caleb Williams thinking if it just keeps? I know Zach Wilson had a good game, but if it just keeps deteriorating and you're just looking at the Jets or the Giants as your new home, which is the same home. Oh man, or
the Bears, which by the way,
actually, we're the Bears.
You want to talk about historical incompetence from the quarterback position? The Chicago Bears have a chance to be the number 1 overall pick. They have 2 chances. They have currently owned the first and the second pick in the NFL draft next year because the Carolina Panthers went all in on a guy who's 3 inches shorter than me.
Never listened to Frank Reich about quarterbacks. Yeah, boy. Good God. No, but I bit the cheese really hard on the Giants last year. I thought this was going to be an ascending thing for them. Brian Daboll got all the head coaching love possible last year. So I'm an idiot. This is just like unbelievably bad in terms of, I thought the Giants were going to do what the Cowboys were doing right now. And it's a total role reversal, and I'm sorry to say that they're going to have to listen to stupid Cowboys hype for another couple of weeks before that, fades into the background too. So, they should have paid Saquon $35 million, and they didn't.
He's hurt too. What are you paying him for? The guy's hurt all the time as a running back. Like, what are you paying Saquon for?
Just would have been a better decision than those two.
Yeah. I was going to say, he might have saved you from yourself, to be honest. Honestly, I had a friend reach out to me who's actually defended Daniel Jones in the past, and he was like, they should have done the Kirk Cousins thing where you just franchise tag him until you can't, and they had 1 more year left on the franchise tag him. Or no, I don't even think they ever franchised him.
No, they've never tagged him.
No. They could have tagged him back-to-back years or done, kind of similar to what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, just to make sure that he's certainly the guy in that. But I want to say that last year wasn't an outlier, but last year he threw 16 touchdowns or 15 touchdowns in 16 games. People were acting like he was Peyton Manning. Like, he was not turning the ball over last year, and they were winning a lot of really close games. And we said all year the Vikings and the Giants were frauds, and then the Giants beat them in the playoffs, and they won the Fraud Bowl. And everyone overreacted and said they were going to give the Eagles a game. When they got dusted by the Eagles, that should have told you everything you need to know about this team's ceiling. And I think that everyone overreacted to a small sample size of games and just a bunch of random variants, essentially. Like, I think that the Vikings were the only team with the worst point differential that made the playoffs last year. Of all the teams to start the year so far, the Giants have looked like by far the worst. But yeah, any additional thoughts on the Giants, Tyre?
Trill, I completely 1,000% agree with you. As a matter of fact, I've had a plethora of conversations with Giants fans who think I'm just wearing green colored glasses all the time. And I'm like, first off, my first job is an analyst first. And I'll tell you if my own team sucks. I'm telling you, your team sucks. And I've been saying it for the longest. All right? Daniel Jones is just not good. I clowned the Giants when they drafted Daniel Jones as high as they did in the draft. I think he had a second or third round grade on him. And I'm just like, you guys are freaking idiots for drafting him this high. You guys are putting your franchise in his hands. I'm like, I hope you have a good running game. And they did for a couple years in his career. And then the contract, and I think it was John who tweeted it, 4 years, $160 million. Like, what? What was the reason? There's nothing that he's done. That's her. And Trill, you just hit it. What, he threw 15, 16 touchdowns last year, and everybody thinks like he's the greatest? Like, are you kidding me right now?
Vanilla Vic, I've heard him be called.
Like 15, 16 touchdowns ain't nothing in today's NFL. Like, that's horrible. And I'm arguing with Giants fans about how they're going to start taking over the NFC East, and it's going to be a three-way race again. And I'm just like, I'm not worried about y'all. And all of this is coming to fruition.
Three-way race, they're worse than the Commanders.
Yes. I'm like, you're not even on a Commanders level. You think I'm worried about you? Come on. Like, and then Saquon Barkley's always hurt. They draft Caleb Williams. It's just going to be an utter disaster. I'm saying it right now. They don't have the pieces in place to support a young quarterback like Caleb Williams. You need an offensive line to block for him. You need a running game to help take that pressure off of that young kid. You're going to put him in the same situation that you put Daniel Jones in, and you see the results of that. That's all I got.
Worst quarterback situation, Zach Wilson with the Jets or your boy Daniel Jones with the Giants? Which would you rather be in right now?
I would rather have Daniel Jones. I will
at
say
least
this much.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I saw a poll last night. It just when we want to talk about quarterback play in the NFL. It was which quarterback situation would you rather have? And it was like Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Daniel Jones, and I was like, oh my God, this is really picking the worst of the worst. But I still pick Daniel Jones. Like, if you put with all the flaws, with the turnover issues, with the decision making, like Witherspoon pointed it out last night during the game. He loves to stare down his first receiver. Like, I'm not acting like Daniel Jones is perfect. If you put him on a team that had an okay offensive line and you built a system around his ability to run the ball, similar to how the Eagles have approached Jalen Hurts, you could win 10 games and make the playoffs easily. If you put him on the 49ers in place of Brock Purdy, I think that they would still be a very good team. I think the situation for Daniel Jones has been about as terrible as you could get. And I still think that he isn't one of the bottom 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. That's the nicest thing I could say about Daniel Jones, but bottom 5 starting quarterbacks. Whereas I feel, and I still feel, despite Zach Wilson's really good game this past week, I would rather have about 40 to 50 quarterbacks in the NFL over Zach Wilson.
At least the Jets have a better defense and a better offensive line. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, they got everything better. And like when you're looking at Daniel Jones, honestly, I think he's a step below Baker Mayfield. You know, he's just built to go to every team and have the job for 6 weeks before some rookie takes over. Like, he's just going to live in that cycle for like 5 years if he wants to. Like, I don't know, Josh McCown or something like that late in his career. He just feels like that kind of guy. He's a great athlete. People are going to sneaky athlete. Yeah. So love Fitz. Fitz was way more electric at his peak, though.
Never made the playoffs, though. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Crazy. He never made the playoffs.
Yeah. Never made the playoffs, despite like being there in the conversation multiple times. Playoff contender Ryan Fitzpatrick. But I just want to say, you brought up Baker Mayfield before we get out of here. Baker Mayfield, outside of the Eagles game to start this season, against New Orleans, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 116 quarterback rating. Against the Bears, 317 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 114 rating. 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 94 rating against the Minnesota Vikings. And he got absolutely destroyed against the Eagles. He's not that bad, Baker Mayfield. He's a completely replaceable quarterback, but the Eagles defense, the way that they played in that game, that should make us feel better, if anything. That Tampa team isn't terrible, and Baker's been totally fine to start the year. So, all right. Awesome. Technically first episode, I guess, of Birds here. Thank you guys. I had a lot of fun. We will be back next Tuesday. You guys are going to LA.
We're going to L.A. We're
go.
going to be sweaty. We're going to be probably drunk and have a lot of fun with everybody that's flying out with us. So if you're going to L.A., please, just text us, 215-509-5833. We'll be staying at the Conrad Hotel. If you want to hang out there, come on by. Boo's Cheesesteaks on Saturday afternoon. And that's pretty much it, man. Do you want a souvenir or anything, Trill? Forgot to ask you.
Yeah, just get me something. Whatever you feel.
I'm going to bring home a reality star.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Let's go. Yeah.
I'm going to go find somebody from below deck and just put them in a suitcase. There you go.
There you go.
All right, Trill. Well, I appreciate you, man. This is awesome. And we'll see you next week, hopefully with the tan.
Let's go. Go Birds.
Go Birds.